We're going to start in a few moments. The chat is open. You can ask your questions. Let's see. People are here already. Okay. Welcome, everybody. You can hear me? Lionel, you hear me? Chazak, chazak. Beautiful, beautiful. Okay, beautiful. Let's get ourselves set up here.
Can I do anything for you? Do you need anything? Are you okay?
Positive.
Let's go a little further down.
Welcome, everybody. We're going to start in a few moments. Welcome, welcome. What? Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. Hello. Hello, everybody. Welcome, everybody. Welcome. Okay, my dearest friends, I want to welcome everybody who's joining us here. Thank you so much for being with us today. And I want to welcome all of the women from Rockland County, from Muncie, and everyone joining us from all parts of the United States of America, of course, from the Holy Land, from Israel, Europe, Australia, South Africa, South America, North America, and even Asia. So thank you for joining us from the East and the West and the North and the South. For many months, we have not had our class, obviously. For years, I've been giving a privilege of giving Tuesday morning women's class, 9:30 a.m. here in Muncie. We had a large tent. Many of you have participated live. Others watched it live or watched the replay or listened to the replay. Since the coronavirus, like all other classes, we were on lockdown and quarantine. So today we are resuming the classes, albeit virtually. Hopefully we'll be able to see each other soon also live, God willing. And I want to thank everybody for being here. It's very special. This class has been going on for quite a few years in Muncie with a very dedicated and unique group of women and girls who came every week, rain and shine, snow and slush. And obviously over a few months, we missed each other and missed the experience. So I'm gratified and grateful that we can once again resume today, albeit virtually. We have those who are joining us on Zoom, and I welcome you. And you can ask your questions in chat. At the end, I will take questions. So there's a chat button on the bottom of the Zoom where you can ask all your questions if you wish, or give your feedback or comments. Right there, chat, it's open for all. Or if you're joining us on theyeshiva.net, you also have the ability to ask a question. And again, at the end of the class, I will take all of the questions, or at least some of the questions, time permitting. And if you go to the yeshiva.net, you'll see it's the first lecture featured on the homepage, Live Now Women's Class. And there also you can ask a question or put your question in the comments. And God willing, we will address it soon. Okay. Let me just make sure. Yeah, you can ask your question here. At the end, I will take questions. Beautiful. Yeah. So if you go to the yeshiva.net, the homepage, I'm looking right now, it says Live Now Women's Class. If you click on it, right under the video, it says Ask Your Question. And right there, you could put in a question, and we will, God willing, address it. Okay. So the first question that somebody asks is, thanks for your amazing classes. May I suggest you change the title to Weekly Classes for All? Bishlema, when you give it live, it's practically for women. But if you're giving it virtually, then I suppose it's for all. I think I need a woman to answer that question. Okay. So that was the first question. Why it's called a woman's class and not a class for all. Okay, if any women want to answer that question, some questions are above my pay grade. So anybody else could answer that question. Okay, beautiful. So once again, you can, if you're on Zoom, you can ask your questions on chat. And if you want to come to the yeshiva.net, under the video, you have Ask Your Question. Okay, that's number one. Okay, thank you. And thank you all for joining us. Okay, one more thing. I prepared a source sheet for this week's class. If you go to the yeshiva.net, right under the video, you will see it says donate, embed, comment, and there's something called source sheet, which is a PDF. I'm opening it right now. And the PDF will give the sources of the text that we're going to explore today together. So again, if you go to the yeshiva.net, there's a PDF. You can open it up. It's under the video. You'll see PDF or source sheets and and you can download it or open it up, and this will give you the source sheets. You also have it on top of the video on the yeshiva.net, right on top of the video. There's something called source sheets, and it shows up right beside my face. So you have the source sheets and me. If somebody wants to also put it up here on Zoom, that would be great. But I'm going to need one of the technologically advanced women, technologically progressive women to do that, because, again, it's above my pay grade. It's probably simple. I see you could share a document, share screen, but I've learned that not everything is simple for everybody. Okay. So in the meantime, you can go to the source sheet on the yeshiva.net, and over there you can download it. I'm just wondering, what does it say? A show split screen, show share screen. Sure, you know what? Let me see. I'm just going to try to I'm going to try to open it on my computer and then be able to have it on the Zoom as well. But it's probably going to take some time, so give me 1 minute. Okay, I think I shared it, right? Did I share it? You could see it? Beautiful. Okay, wonderful. You see that? Okay, let me just get my coffee and we're ready to roll. So, for those who just came on, welcome everybody. And those of you who want to ask a question on Zoom, you could put in your question into chat. At the end of the class, I will take questions. Those of you who are in the yeshiva.net, right below the video, you can ask your question. Both of you, you could see there are source sheets on the yeshiva.net. Above or below the video, there are source sheets. Please open them up. If you're on Zoom, we also posted the source sheets so you could follow the text that we will be doing inside. And again, a very, very warm welcome to all of the women and girls who are joining us here, and all of the everybody who's here from everyone who's here locally from Muncie, Rockland County, our regular participants, and everybody who's joining us due to the virtual situation from all over the world. I'm thrilled to be here with you. I want to thank the women who were the impetus, who did not stop. I don't want to say the word nudging, but who incessantly suggested and asked for this class to be resumed once again. So thank you, and thank you for being here with all of us. I also would like to say that today's class is dedicated in the merit of a young boy, Eliezer ben Sarah Miriam, for a complete and speedy recovery, a refuah shlema and a refuah krova, dedicated by his loving grandparents. May Eliezer ben Sarah Miriam return home soon with a full refuah and arichas yamim, many long, happy, healthy, prosperous years, to be able to enjoy a life with the greatest health physically and spiritually, and a source of nachas, a blessing and inspiration to his parents, his grandparents, himself, Hashem, and all of the Jewish people in the whole world. Amen. We're going to explore today, Be'ezer Hashem, a extraordinary story, which is not in the portion of the week. It's not in the parsha of the week, but it's in the Haftarah, in the Maftar of Parsha Shlach. Everybody knows, or everybody should know, or many of us remember the story of the 12 spies, the 12 men, the Meraglim, that were dispatched by Moses, by Moshe, from the desert to go and survey the land of Israel. And the purpose of their journey was to prepare the Jewish people for the subsequent conquest and settlement of the land. The mission ended in disaster. The 12 scouts came back, and they managed to inculcate fear and dread in the hearts of most of the Jewish people, who were now demoralized and discouraged from entering into the land. The spies came back and literally terrified the people, explaining to them that there was no way they're going to be able to conquer the land. There's no way they're going to be able to settle it. There are mighty giants. There are fortified cities. There are powerful armies and empires. There is absolutely no natural possibility for the Jewish people to continue their journey and fulfill their destiny of making this their homeland. Indeed, those spies, 10 of them, 10 out of 12, were punished, and the entire generation ultimately remained in the desert. That's where they died. Only 39 years later, in the year 1276, before the Common Era, did the children and grandchildren of that original generation cross the Jordan River, enter into the border of Eretz Yisrael, and settle the Promised Land. But what many people don't know is that there is a sequel to the story. The sequel to the story is recorded not in the Torah, but it's recorded in the second chapter of Sefer Yehoshua, the second chapter of the book of Joshua, and it's read as the Haftarah, as the Maftir. This week, this Shabbos, at the end of the Parsha, we read the second chapter of Sefer Yehoshua, which happens 39 years after the first episode with the original spies, the 12 spies that Moshe sent, which ended in disaster. There's a new story. And you could see it on your source sheets, the first verse of Joshua chapter 2. Yehoshua, Perek Beis, Pasuk Aleph, I'll read. Vayishlach Yehoshua benun min ashittim shnayim arnoshim meraglim cheresh lemer. L'chu ru'u es ha'aretz v'es yirichoi vayelchu vayavoyu beis isha zayno shma racha vayishkevu shama. Yehoshua, Joshua the son of Nun, sends from a location called Shittim, he sends 2 men as spies. Miraglim Cheresh. Spies, Cheresh. We will discuss the word Cheresh in a moment. And he tells them, go survey the land. Specifically, I want you to go to the city of Jericho, Yericha. And they went. They went and they came to the home of a woman who's known as a Zoina, which either can be interpreted as a harlot or as somebody who ran a motel and a kitchen that would feed people. There's different ways of interpreting it. Her name is Rachav, and that's where they lodge and they sleep there that night. That's the sequel to the original story of the spies. So Yehoshua sends another 2 spies. According to our tradition, the sages say the names of these 2 spies were Kalev and Pinchas. Interestingly, one of them was one of the 12 spies who Moshe sent almost 4 decades earlier. This time, the mission ends in success. Not only do the spies not come back and demoralize the people, they return to the people with an optimistic message. They empower them and they encourage them to reach their destination. And I want to ask this question. What was the difference? Moshe was the greatest prophet we have ever had, the greatest leader of the Jewish people. And yet, his spies failed miserably. Yehoshua was a disciple of Moshe Rabbeinu, and not quite on the same spiritual status. The Talmud says in Tractate Baba Basra, page 14, the face of Moshe is like the sun. The face of Joshua is like the moon. Pnei Moshe ke pnei Chama, pnei Yeshua ke pnei Levana. He was not on the same level of his master, yet his spies were successful. Why? And in order to answer this question, I'm going to show you how it's all contained in one word. That word that I skipped over, cheresh. Go back to that verse in the source sheets. Yehoshua sent 2 men, granted, miraglim, spies, cheresh. What does cheresh mean? What does the word cheresh mean? This word is not used by the spies that Moshe sent. Moshe also sent spies, but doesn't use the word cheresh. Here there's a word cheresh. The word generally has 2 meanings. Cheresh is somebody who's deaf and mute. Throughout the Mishnah and the Talmud, you will often have an expression, cheresh, shaita, cotton. What is a cheresh? Cheresh is somebody who's deaf and mute. Cheresh also has another interpretation. Earthenware. Pottery, vessels that are made of earth are called clay cheres. or clay cheresh. This is pottery. You take earth, mud, you mix it with water, and you put in some straw, you mold it, and then you bake it under the sun or in a furnace. This is called earthenware pottery. The Hebrew term for it is clay cheresh or clay cheres, sometimes with a samach, ches resh samach. So that's usually what cheresh means, deaf mute or earthenware pottery. Yet both translations don't seem to make sense here, because to send deaf spies would be futile. You're sending spies who can't hear anything. What's the point? You're wasting your time and you're endangering their lives for no reason. And to send them with earthenware vessels also seems strange. Why meraglim cheresh? Why spies who carry earthenware vessels? I mean, what's the point? What does the Tanakh mean with this expression? Shnayim anoshim meraglim cheresh. What does it mean? There's a third interpretation. The Mitzudas Tzia, Mitzudas David, the Ralbag say cheresh in the Tanakh also means thoughts. Al tachrosh ra reyacha in Proverbs. Don't think negatively. Don't scheme negative thoughts on your friend. And they explain that Yehoshua was telling the Meraglim, cheresh, I want you to figure out the thoughts of the people living in the land, their mind processes, what's going on in their mind. Cheresh, I want you to focus on their thoughts. I don't need you to go and scrutinize the entire land and visit the whole land. Actually, they were there for one night. But I want you to figure out the zeitgeist, the energy of what is going on in their mind. Another very interesting interpretation, cheresh. I want you to see their thoughts. There's yet another interpretation in cheresh. In the Megillah, in the book of Esther, we have kiim hacharesh tacharish, silence. I want you to be silent. He sends clandestine spies, but that seems superfluous. When you say meraglim cheresh, secretive or silent or clandestine spies, it's superfluous. Once you tell me that you're sending spies, obviously it's a secretive mission. You don't announce to your enemy, by the way, I send spies, their name is Mr. Schwartz and Mr. Cohen, make sure to find them. Obviously, if you're sending spies, the definition of a spy is that he or she is undertaking a clandestine mission. They have to be silent about it. So why the need for the pasuk, for the Tanakh to emphasize here, he sent two spies silently, meaning he didn't advertise it in the whole world. There were no Google ads running and saying, by the way, Yehoshua sent two spies. He sent two spies silently. But even if you want to say it, it's so interesting that by Moshe's spies, this word is not used. There's a medrash on the book of Ruth. Ruth is, of course, one of the books of the Tanakh, of the Hebrew Bible, the story of Ruth, which we read on Shavuos. And the Medrash Rabbah on Ruth, which is quoted in Rashi here in Yehoshua, presents two interpretations. Take a look at your source sheets once again. If you're on Zoom, you have your source sheet opened. I opened the document, or you could come to the yeshiva.net, theyeshiva.net, and above or below the video, you have source sheets. Please open it up because you'll appreciate seeing the text inside. It will be more meaningful. You see, the second source, Rus Rabbah, Beis Aleph. Medrash Rabbah Rus, chapter 2, section 1. Rabbi Nehemiah Amar Klei Gdeiros Haya B'Yadam. Rabbi Nehemiah says that the spies went with earthenware potteries in their hand. They were carrying earthenware vessels. Kaderin Cheresh Lamer. This is the idea that he sends them with Cheresh, Margalim Cheresh, another, he sends them with Kadarin, with they appeared as pottery salesmen. That's what they were. Kadarin are people who deal with pottery. Kedera means a pot. So Rabbi Nehemiah says that basically Yehoshua told them to go with earthenware pottery. They disguised themselves as salesmen of pottery, earthenware pottery. Reb Shimon Bar Yochai says, no, cheresh kemashmai. It means literally, Amar lehem, he said to them, Asu atzmechem chareshim v'atem oimdim al razehem. Yehoshua told them to pretend that they were deaf, feign deafness, and that way you will be able to eavesdrop on the secrets of others, because nobody would shy away from talking in your presence. So make believe that you're deaf, that you can't hear, and then you will be able to figure out their secrets. Atam oimdim al razeh. Reb Nechemia and Reb Shimon ben Yochai, but both interpretations, would you not agree, are wanting. Why would Yeshua want them to disguise themselves as salesmen of earthenware? I mean, the point is, make believe that you're a businessman, you're coming for a mission, you're not just walking around and displaying the idea that you have no objective here, because then they could be suspicious. Rather, go around with pots. But why cherish? Why earthenware pottery? Why not metal pots? Or why not sell other merchandise? I mean, why the focus on earthenware pottery? I mean, Yeshua just says, take some merchandise and sell it, whatever it may be. Could be earthenware pottery, could be other types of merchandise. True, it was very common to sell earthenware pottery, but why is that so essential? The second interpretation is also very difficult to understand. I mean, if you are sharing a secret with somebody and you see that right near you stands a person, you never met him, and he or she is acting as though they were deaf, would you just spill the beans? You wouldn't be suspicious? Did Yeshua believe that a few minutes of faking sign language to each other would make people free to shed all their guards in the presence of two strangers? You remember the story? It's a great anecdote, probably also a true story that happened in Russia. Many youths wanted to get out of the army draft, so they would go to the doctor and try to prove that they were crippled or they were incompetent, they were incapable of serving in the army. So there were youths who would show up to the medical inspection and they claimed that they were deaf. Anything said to them was ignored because they mimicked perfect deafness. Of course, they had to get a forged note of a doctor, or they had to forge a note of a doctor. And it would say that they have hearing problems, and then they would show up to the medical inspection of the army and they would feign absolute deafness. So they say that there was once a story about a Russian young youth who came before the inspector and he faked deafness. A physician examined him, and whatever they told him, he ignored as though he didn't hear. Suddenly, after many, many questions, and he's like, he doesn't know, he can't answer, he doesn't hear, the chief inspector says, "You're free to go home." And the youth immediately stands up and he leaves. And of course, he was taken right back to be drafted in the army. If you're hypersensitive, you just don't trust anybody claiming to be deaf. Did Yeshua really think that the citizens of Canaan, especially officials with secrets worthwhile for the spies to bring home, did he think they will just speak openly in the presence of two strangers because they're feigning deafness? Is that how it works? I come into an important office of the army, of the Pentagon, I make believe I'm deaf, and then they tell me everything? I mean, it doesn't work that way. What is the meaning of this medrash? So, I want to suggest to you today that this one word cheresh, a description found only by the spies of Yeshua, not Moshe, captures the essential message Joshua transmitted to his two spies, and it was this message that turned it into a success story. And here we see the value and indispensability of a single word, cheresh. It seems insignificant. And yet, this one word, I believe, captures a significant, maybe the most significant, but certainly a significant part of the story. What does it mean? What does it take to be sent on a mission, especially a risky mission, and remain focused, optimistic, confident, and faithful? And this is not just an abstract question about spies who lived thousands of years ago, 3,300 years ago. This is a question about all of us. Each and every one of us is on a mission. Each and every one of us was sent down to this world with a purpose. Each and every one of us has goals, tasks, missions, responsibilities, privileges that we want to and need to fulfill. They come often with setbacks, with doubt, with stumbling blocks, with failure, with retreat, and sometimes with a lot of pain. What does it take to be sent on a risky mission and remain confident, loyal, faithful? Yehoshua sent two spies with the word cherish. It takes, Yehoshua intimated, two qualities. Number one, you need to be deaf. Cherish, you need to be deaf. Number two, you need to be an earthenware pottery salesman or saleswoman. What does this mean? The first key to be a successful agent, to fulfill your mission that God sent you, is to pretend that you're deaf. Now, I know that sounds strange. Everybody should be blessed with the perfect ability to hear and see, and all the other characteristics and qualities that are blessings in our life. But what I'm talking here about is the fact that any person who has ever undertaken the task of doing something worthwhile in this world has been told by at least some, if not most people, you're crazy. It's not going to work. It's never going to be done. Any great initiative that was started by any individual or by any community, there was always somebody who said, it's not going to work. It's not going to happen. You want to build an institution. You want to build a community. You want to create a new initiative, an organization, a new website, a new movement, a new institution. You have a dream you want to fulfill. You have agendas, you have goals, big or small. Somebody will tell you, you're crazy, you're insane. This is a ridiculous idea. If a person listens to all the advice that people give, he or she will never ever succeed in accomplishing God's mission. Many of you ladies sitting here right now, or standing, or listening by phone, or by Zoom, or on the yeshiva.net, or however you're listening now, or you're going to listen later. You know, some of you are, thank God, very ambitious people and have lots of dreams, and even without ambition and not lots of dreams, just running day to day family duties and obligations is quite a formidable task and goal. And very often, you or we think about things we can do differently, new things we could create, new hearts that we can kindle, ways that we can make a difference. But there is an inner voice or an outer voice that paralyzes us. And it basically tells us it's not going to work. The famous old expression, most people live lives of quiet desperation. People who tried creating powerful movements or doing new things were told that they're wasting their time. There are always the naysayers who will tell you, this cannot be done. Let's just maintain the status quo, even if it is paralyzing us. I do not know if there was a single great project in history that was done without somebody criticizing it. Some of the most extraordinary people died unappreciated and often ridiculed. Their ideas or creations were innovative, daring, and revolutionary, and many people can either not understand it or were terrified by it. I want to give you here an email. It just moved me, and I'll tell you the source of it. There is a young man who was abused as a child, and he decided to dedicate much of his life to fight child abuse and to speak out about it. He was ridiculed, he was threatened, he was terrorized, he was mocked, he was slandered, because I don't have to tell you that the painful issue of child abuse and child molestation has been buried under the rug for many decades. And it was something you don't talk about. And this person, friend of mine, stood up and started to do things. And he's a sensitive soul, and it was very, very difficult for him. It was extremely difficult for him. but he persevered and he has had success. There's still a long way to go, but relatively speaking, he's had success. I get an email that somebody sent him. Somebody sent him this email. He writes as follows: I think that you are a tzaddik for your work, for your struggles, for your mission. So what if you're not appreciated fully? You want to be popular or you want to do the right thing? The great Meiri, Rabbeinu Menachem HaMeiri, who was is one of the greatest Talmudic commentators, lived in France, 14th century. He toiled in total anonymity his entire life. He died unknown and unmourned. Today, the books of the Meiri are in every single yeshiva and Jewish home, considered one of the timeless classics of Jewish law and Jewish scholarship. Van Gogh sold one painting his entire life. He died penniless in an asylum. Today he's considered the greatest impressionist who ever lived. The great Lubavitcher Rebbe was mocked and ridiculed by opponents his entire life. I come from those circles. I never even went to see him once because we grew up ridiculing him. He is on his way towards being recognized as one of the greatest souls in many generations. History will judge your actions, the lives you have saved, and the pain you have prevented, even if you're not winning a popularity contest among the foolish masses. Chazak, chazak, v'nis chazek, signed David Lichtenstein from Headlines radio show. And I found this to be such a moving and authentic testimony to what often real and authentic people go through. And this is what Yeshua is telling the spies. Every person in life has something important to contribute. And very often, if you want to be successful, you will have to be deaf. It even has to do with your own family. Sometimes there's certain things you need to do for your children and with your children that many people will not understand. They'll have comments, they'll ridicule you, they'll mock you, they'll make fun of you, they'll demand from you certain social conformity. And it's very difficult because if your ears remain open to all feedback and criticism, you could become demoralized and paralyzed and depressed. Sometimes you have to be able to feign deafness. You have to know what not to listen to when you know that you're doing the right thing. Does it mean not to listen to anybody? No. You do have to have a Yeshua in your life. You do have to have mentors, teachers, guides, friends, partners whom you know are people who really care about you and who want your success and want your benefit and appreciate you and are empathetic. From them, you must get feedback. Always get feedback. And if there's criticism, constructive criticism, cherish it, because only constructive criticism allows you to grow. But just naysayers who really don't care about you or your family, but will just have a comment to say, because why not? Doesn't cost to say a comment. You know, some people know the price of everything and the value of nothing. Or today people are reading more and more about less and less, as the saying goes. People who know the price of everything and the value of nothing, what does it cost them to make some snidey comment about you, your motherhood, your fatherhood, your abilities as a person? Whatever it is, doesn't cost anything. You have to know how to feign deafness in life. Somebody sent me this great image, like this great cartoon here. It's called Where It All Started. Where It All Started. And it shows you know what, maybe I have it. Somebody just sent it to me. Let me see if I could post it here. Okay, I'll just say it to you because I don't see it readily available. So somebody sent me this great image where it all started. Basically, Google, Apple, Amazon, Disney, Mattel all started literally in a garage. All of them in a garage. Because whatever you do needs courage. Whatever course you decide upon, if it's something productive and meaningful, if it's making a difference, there will be somebody telling you that you're wrong. John Eliot once said, history shows us that the people who end up changing the world, the great political, social, scientific, technological, artistic, even sports revolutionaries, are always nuts until they're right, and then they become geniuses. But somebody will first tell you that you're nuts before they will admit that you're a genius. The story of Google is well known and incredible. Larry Page and Sergey Brin, one of them a Russian Jewish boy, graduates of Stanford University, rent a garage from a friend in September 1998 to develop a search engine. Today, Google is the most commonly used search engine in the world, and it's worth, I believe the net worth of Google as a company is worth around $300 billion. Not bad for a young Russian boy. $300 billion. Not so bad. But it didn't start off that way. It started off as something tiny, insignificant that people made fun of, and people they went to thought it was a futile investment. Apple is an insanely international popular brand. Few people realize it was started in a California garage by three young men. Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, Ronald Wayne. They developed the first Apple computer in 1976 in the garage of Steve Jobs' parents' house. So the Havdil, Yehoshua tells his spies, the only way to be a successful ambassador of Hashem, to change your corner of the world, is to be cheresh. You have to be a little deaf to negative encouragement. Everybody will always find a reason why it can't be done. They will tell you, you don't need the headache. You have enough on your plate, but you are on a mission. You have no time or energy for pessimism and for doubts. God sent you on a mission to make this world Eretz Yisrael, to make it a divine world, a world of goodness, morality, holiness, kindness. And if he sent you, you can succeed. Don't allow the voices outside, and even more the voices inside, to make you doubt that. Remain deaf to the chatter in your head and the chatter by people around you who will explain to you how you will be a colossal failure. To quote General Montgomery, the difficult we do immediately and the impossible takes a little longer. And sometimes the bigger the critics, the bigger the bricks that the critics throw at you, probably the bigger the palace that you're going to build. So a wise man once said, if the bricks are really, really big, wow, this means you're building a big palace. I once heard that Sarah Schneer, the founder of the Beis Yaakov girls' schools in 1917 in Krakow, when she opened the first girls' school in Krakow, which was unprecedented and revolutionary. And a few years ago, I took a group of 60 or 70 university American Jewish students to Poland, and we went to Krakow. And I remember Shabbos afternoon, we went to the first school of Beis Yaakov that Sarah Schneer opened up. And I stood outside and I gave them a history of what Sarah Schneer did with Beis Yaakov. And you know how criticized she was, of course, by many, many great people. And there's a story that in the first classroom, people threw rocks through the windows that landed in the classroom where Sarah Schneer was teaching her beloved female students. And the story goes that Sarah Schneer picked up one of these rocks and says, these stones we're going to use to put into the foundation of the next Beis Yaakov school that we are going to build. That is what it means to be deaf in the best and healthiest way. They're throwing bricks at you. The bigger the bricks, the bigger the palace. And I must emphasize, this is not about hubris, arrogance, pompousness, narcissism, deaf to criticism. No, if that's the issue, then you will be a colossal failure. People who are deaf to anyone who speaks the truth to them will never succeed in the long run. But when you're deaf to naysayers, when you're deaf to people who know how to doubt everything and are not ready for courage and fortitude and faith and resilience, then deafness is a blessing. More importantly, you have to be deaf to the chatter in your own head, which tells you that you're a loser and a failure. And it's true for so many of us in so many areas of life. People say to themselves, I will never be able to extricate myself from my trauma, from my pain, from my abuse. I am always destined to remain stuck in the quagmire of my fears and insecurity and traumas. So that chatter holds us back even from our own inner emancipation and success. And you have to know how to create space for that chatter, but not allow it to run your life. You have to be able to be deaf to its verdict. Don't be deaf to what it's teaching you about yourself, but be deaf to its conclusions, because its conclusions are, why don't you just sit on the couch and remain there till the end of your life and don't utter another peep because you have nothing to say and you are an essential loser. If that is what its conclusion is, you have to be able to be deaf to it. I'm going to ask the people to mute themselves. Can you mute yourself on Zoom? Because there is background noise. It'll be much easier if you can mute yourself. And this is true in each and every one of our lives. If you can take that criticism and instead of being paralyzed by it, what you do is you turn that into even an impetus for strength, because it makes you realize how important the mission is. Then, as Sarah Schneer said, these rocks will become part of the future foundations of New Beis Yaakov. Now we're going to go one step further. And here I share with you a teaching of Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev. Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev was one of the greatest Hasidic masters of his generation. He passed away in the year 1799, after Sukkot, Tovkuf Ayin, I believe. He was, of course, the rabbi and the spiritual leader of Berditchev, which is a city in the Ukraine. And there's a compilation of many of his teachings in a book called Kedushas Levi. And here is, open up your source sheet, source number 3, Kedushas Levi Parsha Shlach. Listen to his words. Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berditchev speaks. Ki kishat tzadik ba b'makayim az ma'orer oisi harishima asher kvar haya b'makam ahu. V'kan shahaya beretz Yisrael harishima min hamiraglim harishonim ratza Yehoshua shaloi la'orer harishima mehem. V'zeu cheresh sheyasu atzmam chareshim shaloi l'shmoya harishima min hamiraglim rishonim. Wow. We have to understand what the Berditchev is teaching us here. The Berditchev says, when a person comes to a place, they leave an impact. Their energy impacts that place. Every person has energy. My thoughts, my words, my actions, my radiance, my moods, my dispositions, my characteristics. There is an energy that I exude. And wherever I am, the environments I am are impacted by my energy. Now, not everybody who will come to that place, their antennas may not be fine-tuned to be able to detect that energy. But he says, but a tzaddik, a sensitive soul, a spiritual soul, when a tzaddik comes to a particular place, all the energy that has been concentrated in that place from previous people who have been there, he or she will sense. Not only he or she will sense it, he or she's antenna will absorb it. And this is what Yehoshua was afraid of. He knew that 39 years ago, Moshe Rabbeinu sent 12 spies, and 10 of them were fearful and demoralized. Please mute. Everybody, please mute yourself. Please mute yourself. I have to figure out how to mute everybody. Please mute yourself. Thank you. Yehoshua is thinking 39 years ago, Moshe Rabbeinu sent 12 spies into this very location. They came to scout the land of Canaan, and they were fearful. They were demoralized. They were anxious. what might happen now? Listen to this. What might happen is the two spies that Yeshua are sending the two spies whom Yeshua is dispatching presently are going to come to that place. And you know what they're going to feel? They're going to feel all the energy, all the negativity, all the toxicity, all the fear, all the insecurity, all the dread and terror that those 10 spies felt and projected into their space when they visited this place 39 years ago. And you know what's going to happen? What's going to happen is the second spies could be completely infected and transformed negatively by that toxicity. And not only that, they won't even know it's coming from them. They will think it's coming from themselves. So Yeshua said, you will have to be deaf. Deaf to what? Not deaf in the physical sense of not hearing what people say. You will have to be deaf. Not to take in and absorb the toxic residue of the energy exuded by the original spies who projected their terrible fear into this place. If you will not be deaf to that energy and you will absorb their energy, ultimately you will become failures, because in life you have to learn how to own your own energy. This Rabbi Barditchev wrote hundreds of years ago. I told you he passed away 18 Tovkuf Ayin is, what did I say when he passed away? I'm sorry. I have to correct myself. He passed away Tovkuf Ayin. Tovkuf Ayin would be 1809. I said 1799. I correct myself. 1809. So this is a man who lived in the late 1700s, mid-late 1700s, and early 1800s. What is he teaching us here? If you are a sensitive and a spiritual soul, when you go somewhere, you will pick up and absorb the energy of the place and of the people who are present there. And I find this so timely now, as the pandemic of the coronavirus is, God willing, coming to an end. It seems like the curve has been flattened, and more of the world is opening up and going back to normal. We still don't know for sure the future. The future is still uncertain. Only God knows the future. But it seems like that many institutions, many synagogues, schools, camps are slowly opening up. Now, during these months of quarantine, we were all quarantined for many months. Quarantine posed many challenges. Of course, in addition to the terrible, terrible health crisis and all of the devastating deaths and illnesses that so many loved ones and so many friends and family members suffered and are still suffering. In addition to all of that, which is quite obvious, but something happened during quarantine. You know what happened? And many of you will understand this very, very well, I think. And that is, you got to learn about your own energy and to own it. Because before quarantine, everybody was mingling so heavily that it was so difficult for many people to distinguish between their energy and other people's energy. And I didn't know the difference. How do I know the difference? If I'm coming to a class, or I'm coming to shul, or I'm going to a bar mitzvah, or I'm going to a wedding, I'm going to a Sheva Brachas, or I'm going to the supermarket, or I'm just hanging out with people here or there. People who are sensitive and pick up the energy come home and they don't even know that it's not their own energy that they are experiencing. They're experiencing other people's energy. And when you are a sensitive and spiritual soul, the more sensitive and spiritual, the more you will pick up the energy. The Kedushas Levi, Rabbi says that a tzaddik comes to a place, he triggers and experiences and arouses every piece of energy that may be dormant and latent for many, many years, for many decades, and he will experience it. Sometimes, some of you know, you go to a big event, a wedding, a bar mitzvah, dinner, a reception. You come home and you find yourself in a bad mood. You find yourself exhausted, depleted. I know it happens to me sometimes. I used to blame myself and try to figure out what happened to me. Why am I such a mess? Then I learned It's not always about me. Sometimes it is about me, but it's not always about me. Sometimes I bring home the energy of other people present and I confuse it with my own energy. In life, our energies mix with each other. I pick up your energy, you pick up my energy. I speak to you on the phone and you're in a very negative place and I pick up your energy and suddenly an hour later I'm in a negative place. Or you're very positive and I pick up your energy and it affects me. And sometimes if I'm in the presence of somebody who's experiencing, not by their fault necessarily, a lot of toxic energy, I may absorb it and then I blame myself for something which doesn't belong to me. And I also internalize it as my own. What's the solution? The solution is awareness. Awareness means knowing this is my energy, this is not my energy, and I have to differentiate between who I am and who I think I became. I cannot fall prey to the negativity and toxicity which just attached myself to it. On the contrary, my job is to be able to emancipate myself from it, and then ultimately I can help the other person as well. Everything changes when you start to emit your own frequency and own your own energy rather than absorb the frequencies of others around you, and that becomes mistaken as your own frequency. When you start imprinting your intent on the universe rather than receiving an imprint from existence, you and I are responsible for the energy that we create for ourselves, and we are responsible for the energy that we bring to others. Yehoshua knew that these spies are about to enter the land of Canaan. They're going to walk in the footsteps of the original spies. And the sensitive souls they are going to pick up all the energy of the original spies, and it may come to define them. Suddenly, they're thinking the thoughts of the original spies. They're feeling the feelings of the original spies, and they think it's their own. And it's an incredible insight. You start thinking thoughts, you think it's yours. It's not yours, it's somebody else's. You start feeling emotions, you get into moods, you think it's yours, it's not yours. You're picking it up from other people, it's not even yours. By the way, sometimes this is so powerful, it's even true for the future. I want you to know something. There was a city in Poland, there is a city in Poland called Oświęcim. Oświęcim is the name of the city. Before the war, it was a very special Jewish city. Some people even say the Jews, I once read a book, the Jews used to call it Ushpizin, Oświęcim Ushpizin. You know why? Because of the hospitality in that city. Guests who would come would always find a warm home. Of course, it came to be better known as Auschwitz. And the story is that the holy Rebbe Elimelech of Lezhensk, the Noam Elimelech, and his brother Reb Zusha of Annapolis traveled Poland, including this city. Reb Zusha went into Auschwitz, and he said he cannot stay there overnight because he's feeling a horrible, horrible energy here. And Reb Zusha left Auschwitz, he would not stay there for the night. Reb Zusha, Rebbe Elimelech lived in the 1700s. They were students of the Maggid of Mezrich. They passed away in the later 1700s. One of them in the 1780s and the other one a few decades later. And as a result of this, they were living a long time before the Second World War. But sometimes a sensitive soul can even pick up future energy. Can you imagine? That's how deep it is. But certainly here, you're going in the footsteps of the old spies. You're going to pick up their energy. So Yeshua said to them, you have to be deaf to the energy of the spies who were once here. And they plotted the slander against the Holy Land, and they contaminated this place. Don't allow their energy to mingle with yours. Don't allow it to go into your system and make you meshuggah. And if it does go into your system, you have to be able to be deaf to it, not allow it to control your life. Somebody once sent me a great line. I'm going to read it to you. To be nobody but yourself in a world which is doing its best night and day to make you everybody else means to fight the hardest battle which any human being can fight and never stop fighting. So sometimes you go to a family event, you go to another event, and people's energy gets stuck. Don't allow that to happen. Know what to expect and hold on to your own energy. That is your duty, and that is the best way you can help others. And now, when quarantine is slowly coming to an end and people are mingling once again, the best thing you can do for yourself and your children and your loved ones and other people is to own your energy and to remember that you are an ambassador. You're a miragil, you're a shliach, you're an ambassador of Hashem, a divine ambassador of love, light, hope, awareness, depth, truth, authenticity, wisdom, healing, and redemption. That's the energy I want to identify with. That's the energy I want to exude. That's the energy you and I want to bring into the world. Finally, Yehoshua told the spies they need one more quality. They have to be deaf, and we explain what that means, but they also have to become salesmen of earthenware pottery. Remember the first opinion of Reb Nechemia and the second source in Med, Reb Nechemia Amar Klegderis Oye Biyadam, Kaderin Cheresh Lema, you have to be salesmen of earthenware pottery. What does this mean? I see people are asking questions. We're going to finish in a few minutes, and I'm going to take all of your questions, or many of your questions, bli neder. You can type in your questions in the chat, or you can type in your questions and ask a question on the yeshiva.net right below the video. So let's now come to the last point, our final point, and that's the earthenware pottery piece. Everybody knows that in Torah there's something called Tumah and Tara, the laws of purity and impurity. They differentiate between an earthen utensil and utensils made of other materials, let's say gold or silver, tin, copper, lead, all other metals. All utensils become impure through the contact of an impure object with any part of the utensil. So let's take a human corpse or the carcass of an impure animal, and it comes in contact with a metal bowl. That metal bowl becomes impure. And once it becomes impure, you can't use it for any sacred food. I can't eat a sacrifice inside of it. I can't eat in it truma, tithings, which is sacred food that was given to the kohen. Why? Because the vessel became impure through contact with a source of impurity. Let's say a dead weasel touches a metal vessel or a wooden vessel, for example, it becomes impure. Earthenware utensils have a different law. They become impure only if the source of impurity enters the inside, the inner cavity and interior space of the vessel. If the dead weasel touches the exterior, it remains pure. Isn't that interesting? So if I have an earthenware pot and a dead weasel touches the outer surface, it's pure. Only if it goes into the inner surface, the inner cavity, does it become impure. Not only that, in the case of earthenware, even if the dead weasel didn't touch the vessel itself, it just entered into the ear space, the interior cavity of the vessel, without touching it, the vessel still becomes impure. In other words, when the source of impurity is suspended inside the walls, even without touching the walls, the interior, the exterior, it is impure. This is a fascinating law. And if no other vessel does this exist, every other vessel, for it to become impure, the source of impurity has to touch the vessel, either the outside or the inside. If it touches the exterior or the interior, it becomes impure. With an earthenware vessel, if it touches the interior, nothing happens. If it touches the exterior, nothing happens. It remains impure. If it goes inside the ear space, even if it doesn't touch anything, you suspend a dead weasel into the ear space of an earthenware vessel, and it becomes impure. Fascinating, fascinating law. What is the logic of this? This says in the Torah, in Leviticus, and Parshas Shmini. What is the logic of this? The logic of this was explained by the Kotzker Rebbe very beautifully, and also other sources. And the logic is as follows. All impurity depends on the value of the vessel which is becoming impure. For example, you'll forgive me, vessels that are made out of dung, they used to make vessels out of dung, are not susceptible to impurity. You know why? Because they're more or less worthless. The more valuable and significant a vessel is, the more it's susceptible to spiritual impurity. And there's a reason for this, because impurity, tumah, is always attracted to something which has great potential for holiness. The greater the potential for holiness, the greater the potential for impurity. Bees are attracted to honey, and robbers don't go rob a schnorrer, a homeless beggar. They go to a bank because they know that a bank robber, he's looking for the money, he's looking for the cash. Impurity is always commensurate with the potential value of something, of how great a potential it fulfills. Now, the value of a vessel that's made out of wood or metal, gold, silver, is in the very material of which it's made out of. Wood is valuable, metal is valuable, gold is valuable, silver is valuable. So therefore, contact with any part of it, including the outside surface, has an effect upon its ritual state because it's valuable. But what about an earthenware vessel? An earthenware vessel doesn't cost much. You know why? What is it made out of? It's made out of earth. You take earth and you mix it with water. It's mud. You take a little straw. So it's basically worthless. You bake it in the oven, and you have to have somebody who knows what they're doing in order to mold it, for those of you who have created and crafted earthenware pottery. But it really doesn't have much value because you're taking mud, you're taking earth. It doesn't cost money. It's not gold or silver or even wood, lumber. So as a result of that, earthenware vessels, they don't really have any value. What is their sole value? Their sole value is as a container. So it's affected by what happens inside. With other vessels, what makes it valuable? The very material. So therefore, when impurity touches the very material of it, outside or inside, it becomes impure. But with earthenware vessels, the material itself is meaningless. It doesn't have any value. It's mud. What's the value? What constitutes the value of an earthenware vessel? That it's a vessel. Something something could be placed inside of it, that it could contain something. The value is not the vessel in and of itself. The value is the vessel as a container. I have a cavity. I have ear space. You could keep things inside of me. You could put wine inside of me. You could put other beverage inside of me. You could place food inside of me. You could place other materials inside of me. That is my value. My value is not the vessel, the material itself. The material itself is mud, earth. Go outside and get it. You don't have to pay money for mud. So what's the value? The value is that it could contain something inside of it. So which part of it could become impure? If you touch the outside, that's valueless. There's no impurity there. If you go into the space inside, that's the only way it can become impure. But other vessels, any contact, outside or inside, makes it impure. You understand? This is the logic, how the Torah commentators explain the difference of an earthenware vessel and every other vessel. In other words, earth on its own is valueless. Not that it's valueless, but it doesn't cost money. So touching the outside surface of earthenware doesn't affect its state of purity, because that does not constitute the value and the significance of the vessel. Its entire value is what? It contains something inside of it. So only when the impure substance gets inside of it, even if only into the ear space, the place where it contains other substances, it becomes impure. Now we'll understand why Yahushua told the spies, Cheresh, you chevre, if you want to succeed, you have to be able to become salesmen, so to speak, of earthenware pottery. You have to be able to hold on to earthenware pottery. He wasn't only talking about physical business. They should become salesmen of earthenware pottery. Maraglim cheresh. The pasuk doesn't say he told them to carry vessels. He said, I need you to be earthenware pottery. Don't make any mission about yourself. It's not about you. It's about what you represent. Success in your mission will only come about if you see yourself as a salesman of earthenware pottery. What does this mean? If you're completely loyal to the mission you represent, to the calling given to you, to the work asked of you. If I allow my ego to become the center of my mission, you know what happens? Fear, insecurity, social pressure, other forces paralyze me. Only if I'm like an earthenware vessel. It's not about me, but it's about what I carry inside of me, what I represent. Then I will succeed. And it's true in all of our lives. So many things in life can paralyze us. Could be inner trauma, could be deep fear, could be insecurity, could be experiences in the past or in the present, could be all types of forces inside of me or outside of me, from inside of me or from the people around me. When I take myself less seriously and I take my mission more seriously, this is the greatest source of healing, because then it's not personal. It's not about me. It's about what I am summoned for. And that makes all the difference. So Yeshua is telling them and giving them one of the most powerful advices in life. Whenever you want to succeed in your mission in the world as an individual person, as a mother, as a wife, as a grandmother, as a friend, as a Jew, as a father, as a husband, as an individual human being, as part of a community, and also as an individual. Yeshua is saying, if you want to succeed in your mission, you have to remember to be like an earthenware vessel. An earthenware vessel always focuses on what? On that which it contains, on that which is inside of it. The moment it becomes personal, it's about me and my ego and where I stand, I lost the plot. I'm going to get lost and paralyzed and confused. But when I could shift the focus to the fact that I am an ambassador, I'm a shluchai shaladam kamaisa, I'm a shliach, I'm an ambassador of the Rabbi Shalom, of the creator of the world. That which is inside of me, that which I'm carrying, I am carrying something. And this becomes the focus, the value, the significance. Then you will succeed. This is Yeshua ben Nun's message to the people, to the spies. And therefore, let's summarize. Let's summarize. Please put yourself on mute. Please, all yourself. I asked you many times. Please put yourself on mute. Thank you. Next time I'm going to have to unmute everybody. I'm going to have to mute everybody if you can't figure it out on your own, but then I'm going to have to learn a new skill which I don't know about. Please put yourself on mute. It's just not fair to everybody else. We love the noise in your home, but we're just trying to teach. So let's summarize. We asked the question, why did Moshe's spies fail? Why did Yeshua's spies succeed? What was the difference? We introduced that word cheresh. We gave all the different interpretations. Does it mean they should be deaf and mute? Well, that's not going to work. Does it mean they should sell earthenware pottery? Why? Does it mean for them to be silent and clandestine? Obviously. Does it mean they should study the thoughts of the people? Obviously. And we introduced the two interpretations in the Medrash. Make yourself deaf and become salesmen of earthenware pottery. And both are very strange. When you make yourself deaf, why are people going to trust you? Are they going to spill their beans when they think that you're feigning your deafness? And second of all, why sell earthenware pottery? What's the significance of that? And we discussed that here Yeshua gave the blueprint for fulfilling your mission in the world, as difficult and challenging and risky that it is. Number one, you have to be deaf. What does that mean? You have to be able to know when to listen to criticism and whose criticism to listen to. Because very often it will only demoralize you and paralyze you. The only criticism you listen to is criticism that's coming from voices and people who want to see you fly, who want to see you change the world, who want to see you succeed. Other people's criticism, deaf, I'm deaf. Number two, Rabbi Yitzchak Berditchev teaches us, you have to be deaf to toxic energy that may attach itself to you, but it's not really yours. You have to learn how to own your own energy and be deaf to other energy. You're going out of quarantine. Know which energy to own and which energy to shed. An important skill in life. And number three, Yeshua says, Remember, you're like earthenware pottery. Earthenware pottery, what is their greatest value? What they contain, not the material itself, what they contain. Your greatest power is that infinity shines through you. God shines through you. The less I take my ego seriously and my mission seriously, my ego less seriously and my mission more seriously, that is the degree of success. I will now open up the floor to questions. You can ask your questions on the chat, or you can ask your questions on the yeshiva.net. Ask a question. Okay, I'm going to start with the chat on Zoom. People here wrote a lot of questions. Let me get my mouse over here. Okay, chat, here we go. Take off screen sharing because it shows your screen with document in large and your face in small. Okay, one day we'll learn about this. Next question from Chana. Is the prophet Yirmiyahu from Rachav? Yes, the Talmud says in Tractate Megillah, page 14, that many prophets and great leaders of the Jewish people came from Rachav. In fact, according to many, Rachav ultimately married Yehoshua ben Nun. She converted and married Yehoshua ben Nun. We did a whole class about Rachav a few years ago, a woman's class. If you go to theyeshiva.net and you go to the portion of Shlach, you go to Shlach, you could type in Shlach, or go to the portion of Shlach in the browser, you will see we have a class, I think it's called something about the rope and the window, because Rachav lowered down the spies through a window and a rope, and we discussed there the whole fascinating story of Rachav. Please mute everyone. I don't know how to do that. Okay. How do you own your energy and shed everybody else's energy? Okay, I guess that needs a whole class, but the first thing to do is you have to know your energy. You have to know what energy you want to associate with, what energy you want to identify with. And then the moment you can do that, you have to really be able to talk to yourself in very emphatic terms and say, this doesn't belong to me. It attached itself to me, but I'm not going to give it the steering wheel and let it control my life. Because if I do that, it's going to completely paralyze me. So this is really a important exercise for everybody to do. Whenever you go outside of your own 4 cubits, you have to be aware of these things. And you have to realize you would not do anybody a favor by letting their energy control your life. You don't help yourself. You don't even help them. So if you can identify these forces inside of you, it becomes extremely helpful and significant. Next question. Another reason that Yeshua's mission succeeded and Moshe's didn't is because God okayed it. Well, God okayed Moshe's mission as well. God said, I'm not commanding you to do it, but he did okay it. And if Moshe was such a great person, he wasn't doing things just to do them, even if they were unproductive. So that makes the question even stronger. I miss your shear, even though I'm not a female. I love the shear. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Maybe that's why Yeshua sent Kalev on this mission, because he was positive and he took his old energy with him on the mission again. That's a beautiful interpretation. What is preparing the men for changing in the present and the near and the future? Well, what is preparing the women? I think we all, changing the world always begins with changing myself. Let's not make the mistake of talk about changing the world and forget about changing ourselves. When I really change myself, I change the world. I have learned tremendously from these classes. How can I help myself with my feeling of loneliness? I try hard to stay connected to people like you who teach, but sometimes people are too busy to either answer and give me feedback and give my regards back to me. Adina asks a question. And the answer to that is the greatest remedy for loneliness is to find yourself entertaining. Yes, we all need social relationships and they're critical friendships, family, connections. But the most important resource to battle your loneliness is yourself. If you could find yourself to be an interesting person, that would be very helpful. And I believe you could find yourself to be interesting because every person is fascinating. And you know how I know that? You know how I know every person is fascinating? I learned it in the first parsha of Chumash. It says God created every human being in his image. Is God fascinating? I'd say so. If God is fascinating, every human being is fascinating because every person, black and white, Jew and non-Jew, every race, every ethnic group, every human being is carved in the divine image. So every person is fascinating, even you. That is the greatest remedy to your loneliness. Learn about that part of you that is fascinating. Leah, it's a woman's class because it's traditionally been a woman's class for several years, but men are invited and my husband is indeed listening. This is Leah from Jerusalem and her husband is listening from Yerushalayim. Welcome from Jerusalem. Okay, I'm just going to refresh and see if anybody wrote questions the last few seconds. And we will take another 2 or 3 questions if there are. Okay, let me see the chat. I'm just trying to find the chat. Okay, it disappeared for me. Give me one moment. Let me try to figure this out. Chat, chat, chat. Who is the chat? I don't see it. Oh, I found it. Okay. So let's go to the chat here. I'm just looking at the last comments that people asked. Okay. Loneliness is healed when you know and feel that Hashem is always with you. Yes, that's a powerful and ultimately true insight. When you know that Hashem is always with you, it's the greatest remedy to loneliness. Okay, last question. Why is a woman's voice intimate? A woman's voice is intimate because a woman's voice is very sensual and it has a lot of potent energy in it. A woman's voice is very, very powerful. It's very, very deep. And anything that's powerful and deep, always you want to make sure that you protect its energy so that its energy is not squandered and used in the most sublime and productive and meaningful way. I think that's the answer to your question. I'm going to wish everybody a beautiful day, a meaningful day, an inspiring day and week. God willing, we will resume this class. We will have this class again next Tuesday, 9:30 a.m. sharp, virtually. You can join us on the yeshiva.net, or you could join us via Zoom. Please share it with your friends as well. This class will be available to replay and watch on the yeshiva.net. It's already there already, so you could send a link to others. We will also have a class Thursday morning at 7:30 a.m. We're learning a mimer of the Baal Hatanya, an incredible